Super. Ici, c'est juste les masseuse et vous donne aussi les, how do you say facials in French? Pour le visage, vous faites ça. Avez-vous par hasard a list of So, yes, Harry and Meghan. So I was just looking around to see what updates I could find on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And of course, I was looking at all the channels with tons and tons of views because I'm always fascinated by that, how some channels just get so many views and others not so much. And there are some, as I have said, like Murali, who talks about Harry and Meghan sometimes, and mostly about Kate Middleton, really, but sometimes about Harry and Meghan. And Tisa tells, and some other people have, in the hundreds of thousands. But typically, I find that when you have a channel with, views in the hundreds of thousands, or even with subscribers in the hundreds of thousands, they are hater channels, which is very bizarre. I don't know how to interpret that. Are they paying for the views, or is it that there are so many more haters of Harry and Meghan than people who like Harry and Meghan? Or are their channels being promoted or pushed up? I don't know, but it's very fascinating. So I was looking around and I saw this one channel saying that there have been all these fallouts from Harry and Meghan's interview with Jane Pauley. I mean, it's fascinating because, it's almost like these people, and it's not almost like, it is a fact that they sit around and wait for Harry and Meghan to turn their heads or, scratch their noses or open their car door or, anything at all, just anything at all, any sighting at all will do. Just a little, paparazzi shot of Meghan in the back of a car where you can barely see her. You just see like one of her eyes or something. Anything at all will do to get these people talking and analyzing and, surmising and prognosticating. It's fascinating that two people who they hate, two people that they find to be completely irrelevant, are so microscopically followed and eager. They're eager, they follow them eagerly. And it's like, I don't know, it's like pigeons, like you just drop one crumb and you just have all these pigeons for the one crumb. It's like this. So, I just looked at the thumbnail. I did not listen to the video where she said that there's been all these fallouts from the Jane Pauley interview. And I'm like, I can't imagine what fallouts possibly could have been, squeezed out of the Jane Pauley interview. It just seemed like such a straightforward interview. And it seems like you have to work for days, maybe weeks to press the juice out of it, to press the scandal. I mean, you have to put that through a blender and a food processor and a juicer, and you have to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. Like, it's like a pimple that just won't burst. It's like you have to bust the pus or something. It's like they're like that with anything having to do with Harry and Meghan, in total desperation to get like maximum pus, and if there's no pus, they create the pus. They do fake pus, you know what I mean? And they squeeze and then it pops like weeks later and they're still on the story talking about it. So it was kind of like that, where she was just like, there's all this fallout. I don't know what she's talking about. I did not see any fallout. I mean, do correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't hear, well, I didn't watch the full interview, that's true, because I'm not in the US, but the clips that are being shown everywhere, one in particular where Meghan was asked by Jane Pauley about her own brush with suicidal ideation. I mean, I didn't really hear her say anything new. What she said then, she had said before. And I saw nothing there. There was no there, no gotcha. So I don't know what the fallout could possibly be, but I'm sure there were many for this woman. This woman, I've seen her before, and I may have listened to one or two of her videos in part. I never really get to the end of their videos. And, I just concluded that her toxic approach to life is not something I want to keep responding to, so I just don't listen to her stuff. But, so there was that, that there was all this fallout. Correct me if I'm wrong, like what fallout are they talking about? Like seriously, what are they talking about? Anyway, here we are in this little store filled with things for children and babies and so on. So cute. Sometimes you really just have to focus, I think, on the moment and where you are, and as you walk, you think about many different things. And of course, because I blog regularly about Harry and Meghan, I mean that sort of is one of the things I think about. But it's also nice to just be in the moment, and just look at what's around you and check things out. And sometimes if you're really ambitious, you buy something like some grapes or something like that. And because this thing with Harry and Meghan, even though you have a sort of themed YouTube channel, which it's a huge pet project that you've taken on, but it could be over consuming. There's such a thing called overconsumption. And like when I look at some of my favorite pro Harry and Meghan sites, I love them, but sometimes it gets to the point where it's like, oh my God, like I can't listen to any more of this. Like one of my favorites, he likes to go and microscopically take apart what these hater journalists are saying, and sit there and put it through a microscope and talk about it. And I'm just like, sometimes I have to tune out from him, because I'm like, we can't let these people co-opt our entire lives, or even how we cover Harry and Meghan all the time. Sometimes even when things are said, what the best thing to do is to ignore them, right? Rather than give them bandwidth and give them, petrol to keep driving this hate bus and this hate train. You just ignore them completely and create your own news. You create your own positive story. You do your own thing, which is what I do sometimes, rather than sit there analyzing just everything. I do some analysis, obviously, but a lot of it at this point is repetitive. It's noise. It's toxic waste matter, and I'm not particularly, interested. I'd rather look at a Mini Cooper, or something like that, than just waste my energy on people and things that are just not worth it. They're not worth it, they're not worth it. Anyway, so there's that. So what else about Harry and Meghan? So yeah, what's next is there was this other YouTuber who said that Harry and Meghan had been making veiled threats at the royal family, and with the interview, like they're really on the interview, which makes sense because they don't have anything else. I mean, that's the last sighting they have of Harry and Meghan. The Oprah interview is now 4 years old. All the other dramas and issues are pretty much adjudicated, if you will. So there's nothing but the Jane Pauley interview. And so they have to, as I said, squeeze that and squeeze that till they get their pus, And now they're saying that Harry and Meghan, or I guess Meghan, made veiled threats to the royal family. I think they're talking about when she said that, as far as her pain and suffering and, mental, hurt, if you will, she hasn't even begun to scratch the surface of it, in terms of her own, run in with that kind of stuff, the bullying, the mental anguish that comes from that, and so on. And so she's like, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface. The way that I interpreted that is that, she's saying what a lot of us do, is that we go through a lot of trauma in our lives, and we just file it somewhere in our minds and hearts, somewhere far away from the everyday, so that we can keep going and we can not be overwhelmed with hurt and pain and grief and all those other emotions. When you defer it, really, I think is what she's saying. She hasn't scratched the surface, and oftentimes we don't scratch the surface. We leave it alone until we're like 75 and 80, and that's where how people frankly become unwell in their later years with dementia and Alzheimer's and this, that, and the next, is because they don't scratch the surface. Many of us, we just don't. We don't deal with it. We don't vent. We don't even admit it. We don't admit it to ourselves. We don't admit it to those around us that we're not okay, that we don't feel okay, that we're really, really hurt, that it's really, really deep, that we don't know if we'll ever be the same again, and so on and so forth. I mean, we all have trauma, and unfortunately some of us deal with it by not dealing with it, by not scratching the surface. And what Meghan said is something that should really worry everyone, not have them pile up, line up throwing more stones at this girl. Is that I think what she's saying is I haven't even allowed myself to come to terms with it, to face it, to analyze it, to go too deeply in it. I just block it. I escape it. I'm escaping it. That should ring a warning bell for everybody, and for her in particular, is that you have to scratch the surface now when you're still young and you're still in you still have all your faculties, and have a therapist or somebody that you can talk to about how you really feel about all of this, because this is a lot. It's heavy. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And because I have seen firsthand how emotional traumas that are not dealt with on an open basis, sort of, I have seen what that does when people get old, and it's really, really, it's something. It's heartbreaking. It's gut wrenching. It's so very sad. When you don't deal with mental pain and suffering when you're still young, and when it's still fresh, and you pretend like you're so strong, and you don't deal with it. But they have a different take on it. So basically, it's just more bile and pus to pile on this girl. But yeah, I mean, if I could advise Meghan, I'd say, girl, you better scratch that surface and do it now. And you're probably going to be doing that for the rest of your life with, a therapist or something. And I hope you have one to talk about this. I mean, and how hurt you feel, for your own sake. For your own sake, because, the mind and the brain is what it is. It's fragile. It doesn't have infinite, strength. It breaks. It gets damaged sometimes when we don't even realize it. Little by little, it's just damaged a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And when we don't admit it and we don't face up to it and we don't get help with it, it comes back to us before we leave the planet. It comes back before we leave the planet, before we say our final goodbyes. And again, I've seen it, so I'm talking, from experience, not my own. I mean, I'm not, old yet with Alzheimer's. I mean, but, I've seen others go through that. And that's one of the reasons, I started like the Mind Gym, which there's some of the videos below on this YouTube channel and things like that for myself, because I'm like, I need to have a mind that is healthy and clear and clean, from all of the traumas in life. There's a lot of trauma in life, and what Meghan has gone through. I mean, I haven't seen anybody in recent memory go through that. So anyway, listen, you guys, I'm sitting here in the park and I really just want to relax a little bit. So I guess that's all for this one. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye.
Deixa eu fechar, né?